I'm Deon. I am with Digital Hobby Labs, and I was speaking on the last episode about, why I set up my company in the first place, and the purpose of me even doing something like this. Well, I got the idea or the concept from Google, right? If anyone uses Google, Google has labs, and the labs are just new things that they're testing out, and they allow you to use those labs. But I just imagine a bunch of scientists in different, you know, different rooms, different areas, just setting up all of these different projects that they want to test out. And that's always been fascinating to me ever since I had that idea. So a couple of years ago, I just started, a business that I didn't really have a clear direction on as far as monetizing, as far as growth or whatnot. But I knew I wanted an entity. I knew I wanted to make acquisitions and get PP&E, property, plant, and equipment, and start building things and learning how to build things. I think initially I make music, so initially I may have had an idea of just kind of releasing music that way, which I still do, all under Digital Hobby Lab. So, all of the publishing, everything is owned by the company. Not that it's a lot, but it is the entity that I put everything under. So, I don't know. I do a lot of things. One of them is making music, and that's really fun. Something I've always done, and it's probably by far my favorite digital hobby. It started off as then my cousin got me a video game, and the video game was MTV Music Generator, right? So if anyone knows about MTV Music Generator, then you know that a lot of people got their start there. It was a video game that was on PlayStation, but it allowed you to, it was a DAW basically, and it allowed you to make music on your PlayStation. And so once you figured out how to make music there, eventually you will want to take some of that music off and put it on. Back then we used tapes and or maybe even CDs. And so you figured out how to set up a studio where you could get your beats off. You can get your beats paused. You can get your beats from the PlayStation. And so that was the beginning of my journey, getting receiver sets and getting tape decks and cassette tapes and, figuring out how to route the music through the receiver and to the tape so that I have something to play once I got to school and I could show off my music, or for whatever. I just may have wanted to listen to it elsewhere, my Walkman or whatnot back in the day. So that was really cool. And that was the beginning of my journey. MTV Music Generator. And, that from there, just kind of grew into where I am now, which is, I have a dedicated system that I use at all times. It's called the Maschine MK3. And, really any machine, but the Maschine MK3 is the main one for me. And I also use that in conjunction with, other things like an SP404, both hardware units. The SP404 is a sampler. The MK3, Maschine MK3 is a controller. So the controller controls the software and the sampler has actual effects that I use, but you can also make music directly in that as a standalone unit, which makes it a sampler. So anyway, the love for that just grew and grew, and never to a point where I was trying to get commercially signed or anything like that. But there are other avenues that I did discover within this digital hobby. Obviously, there's the publishing, right? So when releasing your own music, you have an option of releasing your music through And when I say music, I mean your audio, because it doesn't have to specifically be music. You know, it could be a podcast like this, a conversation, a comedy tape, whatever it is. When you're releasing these things to the public or for commercial use, I have a few options. You can release it directly to your audience, right? In the form of digital media. People still use that, like a CD or a cassette or a vinyl. There's actually a long list of things that you can use to play music now, but you know, you can give people just digital downloads, and the digital downloads can be used on your phone, right? I don't have to tell you this, pretty basic things, but just as far as the avenues of, you know, what you can do with your music to release it commercially, to monetize it. And when people purchase it, you get, you know, the sale of that purchase. And if you have any, you know, distributors or intermediaries in between, if you're releasing it solo, you know, direct to consumer, you pay whoever you're paying in between, and, you know, you take the profits. So, you know, basic sales, basic product and service. In this case, it's a product, and the product will be your music or your audio recordings. So, you know, obviously that's probably the most basic one, the original one. But then there's the digital side of it, in which you release your music on digital platforms such as Apple Music and Spotify, which I do. I release my music that way through DistroKid. So DistroKid is just a distributor that, you know, places your music on various platforms, digital platforms, such as, you know, YouTube and Spotify and Tidal and Apple Music, and it allows your music to be performed on those platforms, Instagram. And when your music is performed, there's a monetary value to that, right? So when you know, I won't get into the specifics of the monetary, but every time your music is played, it's counted as a performance. It can be counted as a performance if it's registered right, if it's attached to some commercial unit, such as an ad or a movie or a TV show, right? So another way to make music or to make money from your music, and this is all me learning along the way, certainly not a professional. I don't make a living from that, but I have money from my music, my publishing. Another way, which I've been trying, and is music sync licensing or sync placement, in which you can get your music and your audio placed on a commercial project or with a network through maybe some sort of sound library, and people use your music over and over, right? Or maybe they use it on a TV show. For instance, if you've ever watched ESPN and you say they're going to a commercial, they play a little bit of music in between the time they say we'll be right back until the time they get into the commercial, and then from the time it comes from the commercial into the show, right? The segment to open the show back up. That music is typically music from just normal creators, right? Like myself, like, you know, other folks that make music. And obviously it has to be music that they want, music that they can use. You know, a lot of the times it's instrumental music and whatnot, but, you know, this is just another avenue that I've discovered that you can, you know, in my digital hobby quest, you can use to capitalize on your audio recordings. So, long story short, one of my favorite digital hobbies is making music and producing audio content. And I'm slowly getting into video content, but audio content has always been my thing, hence the podcast now. And yeah, just wanted to touch on that. But anyway, this is the Digital Hobby Labs. I'm Deon. If you've enjoyed this content, if you could relate to this, if you have questions, if you, you know, start publishing your own music, I'll leave some links below. Take a look at them, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace.